I think we have two kinds of hypocrisy. And regardless of how much integrity you have, how honest you are, how aligned you are with your values, however good of a person you are, we all experience being hypocritical and contradictory in these two types of ways. So, the first type of hypocrisy, it's the one we all think about when we think about hypocrisy, which is the dictionary definition, the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. Pretense. So this usually comes about when we make judgments about people and we actually openly share our judgments with those people. And then we go ahead and do the exact thing that we were judging people about doing. So obviously we don't like this type of hypocrisy. We don't like it. We shun it. We want to cancel it. We don't want to admit that we can ever be hypocritical ourselves, because that means there's an inconsistency with your moral standards and beliefs and behaviors. So, I think there are people who almost seem to be intentionally hypocritical, like certain politicians or CEOs or people in power. And we can't be certain if they're actually being intentionally hypocritical, but it certainly feels that way. It certainly feels that they're being like openly hypocritical, just flopping from one side to the other, not being consistent in their values or beliefs or moral standards, saying they'll do something and then not doing it, or saying they will never do that thing and they end up doing it. So it certainly seems like there are people that are intentionally hypocritical, but of course we can't know that. Maybe they're not aware of how hypocritical they are, but I would say for the most part, most people are usually unaware of their hypocrisy, and it's hard to be aware of your own hypocrisy because we're actually projecting a part of ourselves that we would rather keep hidden. When we make a judgment about someone else in a negative light, it's usually the case that we are projecting that aspect of ourselves onto that person. And it could be true about that person, but I think it's also usually an aspect of yourself that you are too ashamed, too scared, too embarrassed to see in yourself. And you might be holding yourself to a higher moral standard, and you might actually be behaving more in alignment with that higher moral standard, but there might be times where you slip and you do the thing you are judging other people of doing. So I think people usually want to uphold higher moral standards, more ideal beliefs, and they want to attach their identity to those higher moral standards and beliefs, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good standard to reach for, but that doesn't mean that you will always be behaving in alignment with those ideal moral standards. And I think we usually tend to want to believe that we are good people. We don't want to see any aspect of ourselves that could be less than good, which is why we get defensive when people criticize us or judge us in any way, because we don't want to identify with anything that is less than good. And I mean, it's understandable, it's a valid thought, but we are human and we aren't just black or white. We aren't just good or bad. We aren't just Like, there isn't any clear-cut divide between good and bad. We all have a little bit of bad inside of us, even if we are mostly good. And I think trying to deny that shadow aspect of ourselves, trying to deny the parts we don't like about ourselves, leads to hypocrisy, unintentionally. What I'm trying to say is, all the bad, all the ugly, all the shameful parts of ourselves that we want to deny, that we want to hide, that we have hidden so well that we can't even see, we usually project those aspects of ourselves onto others by judging them and acting hypocritically. So, I don't think we can ever completely remove our hypocritical behaviors. I'm pretty sure I've been hypocritical many times in the past. I just wasn't aware of it. And if you asked me to find moments in which I was hypocritical, I couldn't tell you, because I didn't have the self-awareness to realize I was being hypocritical. And because I didn't have the self-awareness, I forgot when I was even hypocritical. So it's a hard thing to pinpoint. And just because you were hypocritical or are currently being hypocritical doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that there's an opportunity to increase your self-awareness and to self-reflect and to learn about yourself. And you can use that judgment, you can use the hypocrisy to grow and to really shed light on the shadow self, to shed light on the ugly parts of yourself that you don't want to admit to. When you do increase your self-awareness, you'll be able to realize that every judgment you make about others, in one way or another, relates back to you, relates back to parts of yourself that you don't want to admit to. And once you realize that, you have no choice but to admit to those parts. You have no choice but to see them for what they are. You have no choice to accept them. And once you do, you can integrate those parts, and you can be less judgmental of others moving forward. So this first type of hypocrisy is, I think, inevitable. I think we all do it at least once in our lives. That doesn't make us bad people, but whenever we do indulge in being hypocritical, it gives us an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and to grow emotionally and to realize that we're not all that different. We are not purely good, and that's okay. If you have high moral standards, living in alignment with those standards for most of the time, for the majority of your time, that's enough. And learning about yourself will allow you to make more informed, more intentional decisions. It will allow you to behave more in alignment with your moral standards, because when you realize you're being hypocritical, you can also realize in which ways you are not adhering to your own moral standards, in what ways you aren't in alignment with your own values. And you can adjust your behavior and speech and thinking accordingly. It's all a learning opportunity. So, there's a second type of hypocrisy which isn't really talked about, and I wouldn't really call it hypocrisy, but I think a lot of people who are scared to contradict themselves are actually scared of being labeled as a hypocrite, and they are scared of being hypocritical, which is why I'm saying that this is a second type of hypocrisy, but it's actually a very necessary type of hypocrisy that only comes about when you observe your past and compare it with your present. It's the hypocrisy that develops over time when you grow as a person and when you learn new things and when you change your mind and opinions and beliefs. So if you believed in one thing in the past and later on you learned about different things and realized your belief was not as close to the truth as possible, and you decide to change your belief to be more aligned with the truth as far as you know it, you are actually contradicting your past self. You are contradicting what you used to believe in the past. And I think this type of hypocrisy, this contradiction in your beliefs, your opinions, your stance, is a necessary consequence of learning and growing as a person. If you're always learning and growing, this type of contradiction, this type of hypocrisy is inevitable, and it's much needed. I don't think anyone has the right to criticize or judge you for changing your beliefs and opinions as a result of your growth and learning, or as a result of new knowledge that comes about. And we shouldn't let our pride or egos deter us from learning new things and changing our minds about them. And we see this a lot in certain fields, in certain professional fields like medicine or science or politics or any field where there are experts. If you're an expert in your field, that term expert kind of creates this illusion that you are always right, and if you ever change your mind about anything, then you're a hypocrite, or you're basically open to being canceled, judged, criticized. So, and it makes sense, it's understandable, and it's hard to let go of these past behaviors because they've become a part of your identity. They've become a part of your career. They've become a part of your status and prestige. And understandably, it's a scary thing to do. It's a scary thing to change your beliefs and behaviors and openly talk about them. So, I think as a society, we all need to realize that experts, doctors, scientists, politicians, CEOs, anyone that is in a position of power that is deemed to know a lot about something or is looked up to for guidance, we always have to keep in mind that they are still students of their topic, of their field, of life. We always have to keep in mind that every expert is still a student and is still learning. And if we don't allow for these experts to change their minds, to change their stances on topics that are relevant to them, we as a society are actually preventing our own growth, our own learning. So it's beneficial for everyone to embrace this second type of hypocrisy, to embrace the contradictions, to embrace the possibility of changing your opinion, to changing your beliefs. And that means we can't criticize or judge or cancel experts that have grown, that have changed their minds, that have contradicted themselves, that have become hypocritical. And we have to openly discuss the need for this type of contradiction, for this type of hypocrisy. Because when pride and ego prevent growth, prevent contradictions, we as a society can't grow. We can't be aligned with the truth as we know it. Yeah, the truth can change. That's the thing. Like, what we know to be true can change depending on new knowledge that we come across. And To evolve as a species, to be able to grow emotionally, mentally, intellectually, spiritually, on an individual level, as well as at the level of humanity, at the level of society, we need to be willing to change our minds. We need to be open to new knowledge. We need to be open to new perspectives and different opinions. We need to be open to contradicting ourselves. And we need to be open to receiving contradictory messages from experts. It's up to the individual to discern what is the best opinion or belief or stance for them. It is up to the individual to discern what to apply, what to disregard, and who to listen to. So don't be scared of hypocrisy. We are all hypocrites, one way or the other, at least once. And that's not a bad thing. The funniest thing is when you call someone a hypocrite, that in itself is hypocritical. You are being a hypocrite for calling someone else a hypocrite, because we are all hypocrites. Hypocrisy isn't something to fear. It's something to either learn and grow from, or it's a result of learning and growing. Either way, it could be used for growth and for the greater good. For your own good and for the greater good. Yep, that's all I wanted to say. So I hope that inspires you to be more aware of areas where you're being hypocritical, your own hypocrisy, and I hope that it lessens your fear of being hypocritical, that it lessens your fear of contradicting yourself. And this video was inspired by something Adam Grant said on the Diary of a CEO. So, Adam Grant said, "If I don't contradict myself, I'm failing to learn." And that is so true. We have to contradict ourselves if we want to learn, if we want to grow as humans and as a society. And he also talks about the addiction to being right and how we have to think like a scientist in our day-to-day lives. So I recommend watching that episode on the Diary of a CEO. And check Adam Grant, and he has a podcast and YouTube channel as well. Yeah, that's all for today. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking till the end. If you liked my video, please consider subscribing. It'll help this channel. I'm trying to grow it. So take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Don't be scared of hypocrisy. Don't be scared of contradicting yourself. Don't be scared of being wrong. They're all learning opportunities, or they're a result of learning and growing. So it's necessary to contradict yourself in order to grow. And anytime you're being hypocritical, it's an opportunity to learn and grow about yourself. It would be hypocritical of me to say that I will never be hypocritical ever again. It would be hypocritical of me to say that I'm some perfect human that always sticks to their moral standards. But that's life. So thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you later. Bye.